At her husband by this much.
Turn the TV down.
I love it.
This is working from home.
This
Yes,
is
the
working from
perils of
home.
Yeah, not so bad to work from home today if you got the air conditioning popping. I wanted to share my screen really quickly just to show you the current temperatures. Don't usually do this at 9 in the morning because they're not very indicative of what's happening. We're looking at 88 degrees already at the lakefront. Of course, we just lost like 3 of these temperatures, but it's in the upper 80s across a lot of the area. 81 already in Waukegan. And with dew points already in the upper 60s, it feels like the 90s at 9 in the morning. Let's take a look at downtown.
90s at 9.
What's that? Yeah, there you go.
9, it's a satellite channel.
That's
You're right. That made me laugh. Actually,
John likes a good radio reference.
Yeah, that was good. We just got the newest dew point reading at O'Hare, 71 the dew point. So it is sticky and it is hot. The atmosphere is a little more unstable today, and we got a little bit more wind shear, which doesn't mean anything to all y'all, but what it does mean is thunderstorms could pop up today. That's going to be the difference between today and yesterday. I don't think they're going to be widespread across the area, isolated, but if they do pop up, they could be strong, and I think they're actually going to happen around the lakefront. So downtown, north suburbs, northwest Indiana, that's where you're likely to see some of these things pop up, but anyone could get it, and our lawns could actually use it at this point. And let's look at the 7-day forecast because this heat is here for a bit. Tomorrow is stifling. These dew points continue to rise throughout the next couple of days. And even though Thursday looks a little cooler, the humidity continues to rise Thursday. So it's just going to feel oppressive out there. We get a little bit of relief for the weekend. And actually into early next week looks okay. We lose the humidity by Saturday and Sunday. But next week looks hotter than this week towards the end. So, yay!
Yay!
Summer. And no beach is open yet, so there you go.
Hey,
I will
we gotta
say-
enjoy it as long as we can.
Working from home, it means I get to work in the air conditioning, so that's good, right?
Amen.
All right, thanks, John.
Well, the
Time
studio
for
does have air conditioning too, but
Well,
yeah.
that's a good point, actually, yes. All right, time for a look now at today's top stories. A judge has denied Jussie Smollett's lawyers access to former CPD Superintendent Eddie Johnson's records. Smollett's attorneys claim Johnson's character and credibility are important in Smollett's case over reimbursing the city for its investigation into his alleged hate crime. Judge told Smollett's team Johnson's record is irrelevant to his civil case.
You would have thought this story would have disappeared by now.
Nope.
Still going on.
Story that keeps on giving.
Yeah. U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth came for Fox News host Tucker Carlson last night while discussing her being Joe Biden's top contender for vice president. Carlson called the Illinois Democrat a deeply silly and unimpressive person. The Iraqi war veteran who lost both her legs in combat clapped back on Twitter saying, "Walk a mile in my legs, then tell me whether or not I love America." That's a good clapback, actually.
That's a good clapback. I like that one. Also, or how about you deliver a baby and become the first sitting U.S. senator to have a child while in office? You know, like there's a number of things that you could, politically, whatever. You could disagree with Tammy Duckworth on certain things, but come on, man.
Unimpressive, she's far from.
And even if you disagree with her politically, she has dedicated the majority of her life to politics and or American military.
Protecting this country. So that deserves some form of respect.
Yeah.
We should also note that Tammy Duckworth on the short list, potentially to be Joe Biden's vice presidential nominee. We'll have to wait and see on that. So everything she does right now has extra scrutiny, and I imagine that Joe Biden likes a little fighter in his vice presidential candidate, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, and some would say she is the top contender so far at this point. But again, very early, still 4 months.
Yep. All right, despite processing nearly 1.5 million unemployment claims, many Illinois applicants say the state isn't doing enough. The Chicago Tribune just released a report this morning saying many applicants have called the Department of Employment hundreds of times a week. One woman said she's called over 2,000 times and not gotten any help. Now, the state says they have 562 call centers up and running, which is 4 times as many at the start of the pandemic, but still obviously not enough for a lot of people to get the answers they need.
Yeah, still a lot of people in need. Last week, Chicago joined the state in upping the pay for minimum wage workers, but it does come with some caveats. Andy Fox is the director of the city's Office of Labor Standards and joins us this morning to break it all down. Andy, thank you so much for joining us.
Just a dramatic pause. It's
just
coming.
a dramatic pause. There we go. Always have these awkward pauses with Zoom meetings, but we're getting it done. Andy, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Hi, good morning.
So the new minimum wage is also differing depending on where you are in the city and the counties, correct?
It is. In the city, if you have more than 3, less than 21, $13.50, more than 21, $14 an hour. I think the county is 13. The state is 10 on a ramp to 15, much lower than the city.
Has anything changed for workers that rely on tips? Obviously, a lot of them were unemployed for a couple months, just getting back in the action. Is there anything they can look forward to?
There is a raise for the tipped workers. I don't have it in front of me, but it's a small incremental raise. And so what happens is it's the tip credit, what they get paid, plus they should be making the full tipped wage. So if they're from 4 to 20, it should be $13.50 an hour. And if you don't make enough tips, the employer has to fill in that gap. Over 21, $14 an hour. And a lot of people don't know that I had a bad day. No, your employer needs to fill up that gap if you don't make the full minimum wage per hour.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
I didn't know that. I wish they would have done that when I was.
Yeah.
They called me earlier.
We all worked as servers, so it's like, oh, when did that happen? Can you clarify the differentiation between small businesses and large businesses, how this new law would apply? Because we know raising the minimum wage can really be tough on small business owners.
Right. So as you know, we're in recovery as a city, as a nation. So we didn't want to overburden the smaller employers. If you have 3 or under, you do not go to $13.50 or $14. You can pay either the state minimum wage would be 10, or if you're 4 to 20, that's $13.50, and the ramp up is 50 cents per year. Whereas for larger employers, 21 and over, it's quicker. It's going to go to 14 this year. It'll go to 15 next year.
So your office also enforces the anti-retaliation ordinance. Can you explain to folks what that is?
Well, this is a really powerful ordinance. You know, when COVID-19 hit, people were scared. They're in essential businesses. The PPE was the buzzword of the day. There were no plexiglass, no face masks. There were no security provisions for people. People were scared, frontline workers. So essential workers kind of brought the first wave of, hey, I want to exercise my rights. I need to quarantine. I'm told by my doctor to isolate. You can't terminate me. You can't discharge me. So this anti-retaliation ordinance protects people exercising their rights if they are following a governor's order or the mayor's order to stay at home under these times. So if you're in a non-essential business previous to reopening and you exercised a right to quarantine, they couldn't fire you, they couldn't discharge you, they couldn't demote you, they couldn't reduce your hours. Any retaliatory action related to COVID-19 is protected under this new law.
So what ends up happening? Have you guys received a lot of phone calls or complaints about this?
You know, initially we did. And I think right now we need to get out there and tell people, as you're reopening, if these things are happening to you, if you're getting any adverse action for staying at home when you're quarantining, or if you're staying at home with someone who's quarantining or isolating. So it's really, if someone is following you or someone in your family is following one of these public health orders or the stay-at-home order of the governor, and you exercise that right, and your employer takes any adverse action, then you can call us at 311, and it gets right.
I want to ask about that action because sometimes retaliation can take different forms, in the forms of general pressure or, you know, head nods in certain directions. Should people be documenting emails they get, or if they get a phone call from the boss, writing down what they thought might have been a threat or just pressure in a certain way? Does it have to be actionable firing, or can it be allusions or, you know, insinuations?
Well, the statute's pretty broad. The law is broad. It's really any adverse action. So let's say you had overtime and you stay at home with your child, and all of a sudden you don't have overtime. Or let's say you were in a plum shift on Fridays with all the patios, and all of a sudden you're working the graveyard shift. So yes, document any of it, even if that's your own personal notes. We take what evidence we're given. If that's handwritten notes, if that's oral testimony, we document that, we put it in a file, and then we go to the employer for an impartial investigation. And it's amazing what people say to people, what people write in a text and think it's not evidence. It is.
Well, I have a question too. So what if an employee is at work and say maybe it's retail and they're at the register and they have the plexiglass, but maybe the plexiglass only leaves this much space open and they're not comfortable. They feel that threatened by the virus. Is there any action they can take in that instance of saying, I'm not going to work in this position? Or they're like, they've got protection. You're going to kind of do what you have to do.
Well, that's the hard part. These are evolving areas. I mean, when we first started this, remember there was no plexiglass and there was some blue tape on the floor. Yeah. And then employers, we appreciate that employers are trying to move in the right direction. And some people are providing protective, equipment, face masks, hand sanitizing. Not all employers are doing well. So we're trying to balance that. Employers are trying to come to compliance. They want people to show up and work. On the other hand, people feel unsafe. They shouldn't have to go to work when they're unsafe. So there is some gray in the middle. We err on the side of the worker. I mean, that's what we're doing. We take the complaint, we investigate it. If we have to send out people to talk to people, we get on the phone, we try to resolve things. Most employers want to do the right thing. Yeah. Some flout the law and they don't really care about their employees. They just want to make money.
Well, Andy, thanks for your time this morning and letting us in your kitchen. I see you brought the patio furniture in. I don't know if you're worried about rain or wind or what, but you can move it back outside eventually here, okay?
Well, we were working on the deck, so yeah. Okay. The deck has been stained, the furniture and the bike will go out tonight.
Thanks, Andy.
He said, mind your business, okay?
Yeah, John.
I can't help but look behind. Thanks, Andy.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, and for more information on the Office of Labor Standards and how they're protecting you, head to chicago.gov or check out the latest on their Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube pages.
All right, you guys, coming up at 11 on The Jam, we've got Liz Kennedy joining us again. She's, of course, an on-air host and beauty expert, featured on many shows. We've had her on the show before. We're talking about head-to-toe quarantine makeovers.
Yes, and I'm excited for Bernice Flygirl Armored. She is the first African-American female combat pilot. She's coming on to talk about what her reality is like and being a Black woman in the LGBTQ community, as well as being a police officer and a veteran. So clearly she's dedicated her life to service. You guys, we're going to chat about all of that coming up at 11.
And I'm going to the ballpark, Impact Field. Opening day for the Dogs.
Bye, guys.